Hi, I'm Harry Quinn, and this is my new studio. I'm going to take you through the making of. I'm going to take you through pretty much all the steps, how we got the room looking and sounding the way it does today, all the mistakes on the way, what we learned from them, all the good decisions, the bad decisions, and all the room construction techniques, the room acoustic considerations, the DIY, the hard graft, all that stuff coming up. Okay, so we've got a nice countryside location for some potential studio buildage. I'm going to go into the other room and show you that. Okay, and here's the other room. That's the ceiling, it's got loads of stuff, it's all building equipment. And we're going to try and turn that building equipment into the building of a studio space. Been doing quite a lot of research into acoustics. I've bought one book and trying to put my university maths background into full flying action. But anyway, I'll try and knock out this wall, put in some new doors and all that sort of stuff. Once this wall is knocked out, try and get one of those ideal room proportions for acoustic loveliness. Thanks very much for watching this video, and wish me luck. Day 2 of moving stuff around. Yesterday we moved all the acro props out of the first room, or second room, whichever way you want to count it. Got the other room to move all the scaffolding tower out of as well. I think I'll try and do one of those classic snap your fingers and done moments. So 1, 2. Okay, well, I can assure you that it is cleared out, but it's a bit dark now, and yeah, probably time to call it a day. But yeah, we're clearing out the rooms, going well. I've been away playing some music, and in that time my dad has taken out the wall. He's taken out the wall, man! The plan now is to stack these bricks in a orderly fashion. Once these bricks are out of the way, we can get rid of the rest of the wall. So yeah, that's what's happening today. Making some good progress. Lots of rubble left, hence the old mask, because there's lots of dust. Anyway. Yeah, lots of rubble. Been having to organise all the rest of the bricks. So yeah, onwards. So this is the remaining wall. Got a few courses to break out, and then yeah, hopefully have this all cleaned out. You can get a sort of an idea of the space. It's going to be a nice size room. I'm going to make it smaller for the acoustic room proportion idealisticness. But yeah, should be good. Safety first, kids. Safety first. Sorry? What? We've got the last little bit of stuff to break out and clear up. And we've just had some materials delivered for the actual room, so I'll show you that in a bit. Right, we got some tongue and groove chipboard flooring. We got some OSB sterling board feather edge for the very outside, and we got some loads of 2x4. So yeah, got to unload this. Not going to be able to use it today, but I need to store it and then it'll be ready. Update on the room, we put in some beams, and we've also put this new truss in because obviously we took out the wall separating the two rooms, so we need to support the roof somehow. And we're starting to put some of this heavyweight acoustic plasterboard. I'm going to have 2 layers of that for the ceiling. Here is all of the rest of it. So yeah, carrying on, carrying on. Greetings from up a ladder. We've started to put some of these partition walls in, which is good. It's been tricky trying to line it up, and these things are very heavy with all the plasterboard on top. On the floor we've got another one we're going to put up. This is the outside layer, so we've got like a room or like a horseshoe within a horseshoe situation going on. Here's another view of what is going on. You can see that there's a little gap between this layer of plasterboard and the frame. There will be another frame occurring around here. And then that will have 2 layers of plasterboard, and then that will be it. So it should be about 3.4 meters in this direction. Next bit going in here, then we'll have a frame coming through here, and there's going to be a door here. Also on the gaps between various parts of the room, we're using this acoustic caulking stuff. Heavyweight plasterboard is about 34 kilograms. Super heavy stuff. Lifting one of these boards with my dad is exercise. So when there are 2 layers of plasterboard, it's going to be heavier, but it'll all be good. May even get some help from the bro for that bit. So yeah, here we go. As you can see, or as you can see now, this is the second layer, or the second frame, which will have 2 layers of plasterboard over the top. Today we're putting in this extra frame for this interior side. Same thing over here. Put in a door on one of the frames and put a second door on this side of the frame. Today we're putting in the rest of this second frame partition wall. I'm doing some pointing up in the corners because there's a gaping hole! There's a gaping hole! Not, but well, by design of the sort of original space, to be honest, so couldn't really do anything about that. Well, we are doing something about that. Putting in some concrete. That's the corner of that wall. This is the main length of the room. We've sort of figured out what to do with the electrics last night, so I think we're just going to proceed with doing that wall with no worries. This is the frame, outside frame, into this little corridor we're going to have. Hopefully going to put a fan in there in order to breathe. And this is the second layer. This is the second frame, and this is the door frame. Obviously there's going to be a double door, and there's we've got 2 of those identical doors knocking around, so that is very, very good, very good. Look at the camera, look at the camera. So yeah, carrying on, pointing up, doing the frame, good stuff. This is the outside of the building. I've just finished doing a bit of screeding at the bottom there, between the bottom of the frame and the floor. This is going to be a layer of plasterboard. We're going to have a gap. We're going to then put some more plasterboard and some OSB, and then a little batten layer, and then some feather edge to finish. Layer 1. Obviously the studio will need some power. There is an existing mains line cable going into here for some lights in a timber shed further down there. So I've just marked that out with some sand using something out of Star Trek. Basically, if you run this over, it shows you where the existing power supply is, and I need to dig a trench around here, which thankfully doesn't show any electrical signals going through. Dig a trench here for the new power supply cable to the room. After some serious diggage for the main supply, I've managed to finish it. Let me show you that. Still might have to take out some more of this concrete slab thing that was running through. Goes all the way, try not to fall in, goes all the way over here, and there's another little concrete slab, or significant concrete slab, but we'll see what happens in the final countdown. So there we go. This is a pretty good view of the trench. It goes all the way over there to there. This is the top of the roof. You can see that there's a gap around this top brick here. I'll fill it in, have another look around, see if there's anything else I can fill in, and all will be good. Cool. Jobbed. Next. Took a while to dig, but didn't take too much time to fill back in. We've got the pipe in the ground with the mains cable popping out both ends. Currently waiting on some insulation for inside the room, inside the walls. So I thought I'd take the time to start working on the diffuser. This is the master sheet. I've got the spreadsheet out and got the highlighter pens out, and looks pretty damn cool. It's a 2D array quadratic residue diffuser. The formula for all of these cells is n squared plus m squared mod 19, 19 being the prime number and n and m interchangeably being the indices along the top and side here. Master Handbook of Acoustics, again, coming up trumps. Really useful book. Also been looking online at other people, how they've gone about putting their diffusers together. There are a whole load of different designs, and basically I like the idea of doing this one. Having something symmetrical is pretty appealing to me. Anyway, I'm using 2x2 timber, which is actually not 2x2. It is 45mm, so according to this formula, my upper limit of frequency effective diffusion range is approximately 3.8 kilohertz. Not bad, hopefully. And the cutoff minimum is, or low frequency cutoff is 476.38 hertz. So yeah, we'll see how it all pans out in full flying audio room working action, but yeah, shouldn't harm. Anyway, so this is a schedule of all the different lengths that I'm going to have to use. I like the idea of having 19 as the prime number, because then I could basically have bits of wood that extended into the room by only 18 centimeters, so I didn't take up too much room, and also this frequency range is not too bad. Anyway, lots of cutting ahead. Wish me luck. Just finished cutting up and sorting out all of the bits for the diffuser. It took quite some time, but everything seems to be present and correct. So yeah, all ready to get glued and pinned and all the rest of it for the final thing. Okay, diffuser time. So we've got the old schematic there. Got a big plate, 1 meter by 1 meter. Got some glue, tape measure, pencil, table, another table, focus, all the bits, all different sizes. So whack them on here, and hopefully the next video you'll see the final thing. Here it is. It's taken some considerable time. The glue is everywhere, but it looks pretty cool. Not much more to say. Slightly delirious. I hope it's not the glue fumes, but it's probably the few hours that it's taken to put this together. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. Hopefully do a good job in the actual room itself. Yeah, there we go. Got the electrician turning up in a couple of days to sort us out with some power. Done a little bit of a tidy up, so I thought I'd show you where everything is at this point in time. So this is the double door frame situation coming along. Door frames over there, coming through. Got all the internal insulation put in, and this is where one of the sockets is going to be, and also sort of down here is going to be sockets going to have the electric cable running along the ceiling. Try and minimise the interference. These are the door frames. One of the doors. I need to level out the floor because it's not particularly level, particularly in this back corner, before we put in the insulation and the tiled roof stuff, ladders. So yeah, that's where we are on the inside of the room. Over the weekend we've made some good progress. All of the plasterboard sheets are now gone. They are fitted. We've got some offcuts obviously, but 2 layers thickness, that wall, this wall, the other wall, showing the set. Mains cable is poking out there for that side. More mains cable poking out there. Got some lights and switches there. Here we have an observation window where someone can look out and see if someone's in, or someone can look in and see if someone's out. That's decoupled here, the frames. The floor is coupled physically. Same thing with the ceiling, so we've obviously made compromises where we are, but you know, what you gonna do, man? What you gonna do? More cable there for the mains, for the fan, ventilation. Here we have sterling board. That's for the outside. The outside. Whoa. The outside needs to be covered up with sterling. That's job 3 for today. Job 1 is to tidy up this crazy mess. Job 2 is to fill in these various bits of plasterboard that need to be filled in. Got some down there as well. Coming along nicely. A day since the previous video. This is how it's looking on the outside. Just putting some battens on top of this breather paper. But the sterling board, chipboard is up. Going well on the outside here. Cheers. There's been a day since I've been here, so my dad's taken the opportunity to put down some of the self-leveling floor. Still drying out at the moment. Since the previous video also, there's a bit of polyfiller in the gaps over in the between the plasterboard. Can't do around the rest of it around the side at the moment because of the floor still drying out. Can do some on the outside, but first what I'm going to do, and the reason why it's so dark in there is the lighting, or some of the lighting is up there, and basically I'm going to be filling in some of the gaps between the ceiling plasterboard, and I'll show you that in a sec. Okay, up in the ceiling now, in the roof. There's the other bit. Just turn this camera around. So basically you're just going to fill in these gaps here, all the way out over to there. So yeah, here we go. It is winter 2019 in the UK, so it's quite cold, so this is taking quite a while to dry out. What we're going to do is put this dehumidifier in, and I'm just about to put some polythene stuff over the door opening and leave it to dry out. Hopefully it'll speed up the process, and then I'll show you what's going on also today. What I am doing now is I'm putting in this weather treated board as like a skirting for before I put the actual weatherboard feather edge stuff over the top. Just putting that last bit. I've also put in these 2 battens so that this square post can be the neat finishing point for the boards to come this way and the boards to go that way. And I've got to do the same at the other end over there, and with this batten situation. So that's what's going on right now. Oh yes, look at that thing of absolute beauty. Little joint down there. Oh yes, look at it. Just fitting the first feather edge weatherboard. Switch up online using one of these. Basically this should help me level the process out because I'm doing it by myself. So yeah, this one's fairly straight. Carry on upwards. Since the previous video of the room itself, we've had some doors fitted. Got a professional in to do that. I think it wasn't my dad or myself, but worth it. Basically there are 2 layers of plywood. These original doors themselves, they weren't that heavy, so we added a bit of mass here, and then we'll also put some seals in around. So here's the other door. And what I'm doing now is I am rubbing down the polyfiller that I put in to leave a smooth finish. Start some painting. What we also had, same chap, when he was here, he's done an amazing job. Although the camera isn't in focus, but I can assure you it's a very, very good job with all the tongue and groove flooring. And there's a thin layer of 20mm layer also, or 20mm layer of insulation underneath. So yeah, painting, well, rubbing down and then doing some painting today. First couple of coats of paint are in, looking pretty good. Looking a little bit more like an actual homely room. Sorry for any wind noise that you may hear. It's quite windy, but this is what I'm making at the moment. This is the inlet baffle box. Loads of foam. That's the in, and then the out into the room is over there. Sorry again about the wind noise. So I've filled in the inside bottom half of this box. What I've just done is I've mapped out on the top of this, so when this is flipped over and I put some insulation here, it will then fit and slide into place. I'll be conservative with the amount of foam that I use here, so I don't get any sort of mismatching of positions. I will show you now what it looks like. Sorry again about the wind noise. This is the top, just done this. It is very difficult to screw through foam, as anyone who's done so. At least I've just found out how difficult it is. So I've got these sort of retaining anchory things, foam anchors, just coined the phrase. And basically, hopefully this should hold everything into place. Very similar to the passive inlet baffle box with the foam. This is the baffle box for the active exhaust. Active exhaust meaning that there's going to be a fan actively plugged in, pulling air out of the room, and the air coming out of the room will pass via this, and any noise being generated by the fan and the air should be totally or very well absorbed. Hopefully everything will work and it won't disintegrate or anything. Yeah, hopefully. Here there will be a small section of ducts fixed to the box, and then a flexible duct will pass through the wall, so that any vibrations will hopefully not transfer inside the room. So flexible duct through the wall into the room. So yeah, I just need to fix the lid on. Yeah. You can't really see anything that I'm doing, but what I'm doing is marking out a hole to go through the wall in the passageway for the baffle box to enter via the acoustic flexible duct. Can't see if you can see. Where's my hand? Here's my hand. There's an opening here, and I've just marked it out on this side. So we'll put a hole in that plasterboard. And then the same thing, which you definitely can't see over there, with this light where the fan, which go through the external rear side wall. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm also up on the acro prop, so it's probably time to get off. So yeah, whacking some holes in the wall. And this is the fan. I've marked that wall. This will actually come further across, but I've taken a line from that, so it should all line up. Just so put a line where this big old baffle box should sit on the platform, so it will all hopefully be repeatable. So I have to move it out of the way in order to make the holes in there and there. This is what I've been banging on about. Here's the fan. I've attached the duct work. It goes into the box. This is going out. See the direction of flow outwards. So this is taking air out of the room. The air I'm just on the roof here. Excuse me. Ah, dear. Right, so there's a hole inside the room, which I'll show you in a sec. And then this flexible duct comes out. I need to seal around the edges. Same thing on the other side, but basically the air inside the room goes into this bloody great box, filled with insulation. The fan draws it out through the wall. I'll show you the other side and the rest of the room. Obviously all these gaps will be filled up with some expanding foam. So coming down the ladder, get a picture of what's actually going on. So you can just about see that duct coming out of the room over to the left there. And this is the big box, and then it will go out there. So let me just open the door. So on the other side, here we have the duct, and that you can just about see some of the rock wall there. So I've got a little 45-degree doodah duct work angle, and that's all been taped up. So hopefully this all works. I'm sure it's not the perfect solution, but we'll see how good it is in due course. Having made a pretty decent soundproof side exterior wall here, put a massive great hole in it for the inlet ventilation. This is my baffle box. It's got foam inside it, got some mesh to stop critters getting in, and to match the outside here I've put the same, it's going to be the same sort of detail coming upwards. There's going to be a roof on it, so maybe I should have changed the orientation, but in terms of elevation off the ground it's probably a good idea to have the same thing for the air and physics. Baffle box inlet nearly done, so put all the feather edge around the edge, around the sides, put some more mesh on the entry point there. Just need to cut and put this on the top. Apparently because this is on a slope it's going to be fine, so let's go with that. There's a hole here, and then that goes into this hole. I thought I would illustrate what's actually going on in terms of the layers of this exterior wall. Lights are on in this room, so hopefully you'll be able to see. So we've got an exterior layer of feather edge, then we've got the breather paper stuff, and then we've got chipboard, 2 layers of plasterboard, 1 layer of insulation, and if we can get some sort of focus going on, there is, you can see the blue there, there's another layer of plasterboard there, and then a small gap, and then the original exterior and interior effectively wall. So yeah, several layers, a lot more complicated than the other ones. Obviously it's a shame that there's now a massive grey hole in it for the sound isolation purposes, but yeah, because it's an exterior wall it needs all these extra bits and bobs to bang it all together. So the lights are on inside there. Excuse the slightly untidy cuts, but hopefully it'll do a job, and once everything's in place, gonna foam around, sort of self-hardening foam stuff, so there won't be gaping holes in the wall. Managed to drop a bit of a clanger when I was doing this first, because when I put a hole in the wall it coincided with a stud, so the duct wouldn't be able to go through all of the layers. So I'm now having to do some remedial work. So I've just put this furring strip here, and the screws are on a bit of an angle, but everything feels pretty secure. And then I've just cut a appropriately sized piece of plasterboard to go onto that plasterboard here. should fit reasonably well when I put it in position. When that's done, I can start doing all of the various foamings around all of the gaps around, like the door and these vents and stuff. April the 1st, 2019, the room is pretty much done. And I've just taken the building stuff out and the protective plastic. The door's slightly open, so you might hear some background noise, but it's pretty minimal. I'll show that at some point. So next up, some acoustic tests. See how we do. And you can hear there's quite a lot of reverb on my voice at the moment. So yeah, there's quite a lot of verb. So the ideal situation will be to deaden that somewhat, but we shall get on to that soon. I have been doing some calculations to figure out the position of various things in this room, most importantly the speakers and the listening position where I'm sat. There seems to be quite a lot of misinformation, good information, all sorts of stuff online about where to put various speakers and different types of speakers and all the rest of it. What people do seem to agree on is putting them in an equilateral triangle where the tweeters are at the same level as your ears, and the tweeters make an equilateral triangle with effectively the back of your head. Anyway, I've got a measurement mic. This is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to hook this up, and then we will delve into the world of room acoustics, and this lovely reverb that you can hear in my voice will be a thing of the past. So yeah, that's what's going on, using my trusty scale drawing and my all the little calculations to figure out where to put everything. So going well, incredibly pleased to be in the room. Obviously it's bare at the moment and need to sort out the skirting at some point as well, but yeah, bit of a weight off the old mind to get to be in here and see some speakers in here. This is what I've been doing today. Long explanations required for this, but in a nutshell, 70 millimeters of foam. The thicker the foam, the better. So basically, these are two tiles put together on a frame with these bespoke retainers, as I'd like to call them, and it looks pretty cool. I might cover it up in some fabric, but actually looks all right as it is. Hopefully the tiles won't go anywhere. So yeah, probably make another one of those. This is all designed for the back wall. First lot of acoustic treatment has gone in. Big old diffuser, 2 rear panels, and some panels behind the speakers, and then behind the speakers in the corner. Doing some room acoustic testing. Here's my measurement mic, here are my speakers, here is some foam, more foam behind me, and more foam outside. Foam crazy. So I will do a control test now, see what it's like, and then introduce the new stuff and see where we are, trying to get a flat room response as best as possible and reduce the reverb time, get it slightly more, or a lot, well, you can hear the reverb on my voice still. Bit of echo going on, trying to deaden that. So that's what we're doing now. Studio progress. First reflection points have been treated with some foam. Put some panels, all foam, cuts over there and there. And also we've got a rug on the floor here. A luscious design. Learning how to stitch. So for vocals, I want to make my own little vocal booth, portable vocal booth type job, which will consist of 3 of these approximately 60 centimetre square, 5 centimetre thick foam panels. But these straps are going on here and here, and then I've got a little batten just to try and keep everything in form, and obviously it'll be suspended by gravity, so that hopefully they won't start freaking out and moving around all over the place, but time will tell. And obviously the same with those, and then put those in a little formation, triangular formation around any mic or whatever, any other purpose. But vocals is the main idea at the moment. Doing some calculations, making some bass traps. The frequency response of the room is not all that flat in the old bass frequency range. So I'm making some panel absorbers. Looked at a couple of articles. BBC have got some good stuff. It's all about the depth of and the thicknesses of these panels. But the sort of simple classical equation that you get is also in the Everest book, Master Handbook of Acoustics, which is an extremely good book, which I mentioned before. Basically that, with 5.5mm, where's that? There, 5.5mm plywood. One of my main frequency bumps is at about 65 or 66 hertz, and what you get spat out is about 220 millimeters at 66 hertz. That's 218 millimeters. Fortunately, my dad had some of this timber lying around, and it's 220 millimeters. So I'm hoping that. So that was lucky. So I've cut that to size, and I've got a big thick plate of 1 inch 25mm plywood here at the back. So we've got a rigid, this is not assembled properly yet. This is just resting, so it'll all be glued and pinned and all the rest of it. There'll be some insulation in there. So yeah, back plate, then these hefty sides, so we've got a nice rigid back, and then this will vibrate in sympathy to the sound in the room. Obviously that's not a good demonstration, but hopefully this will work. They're approximately 1.2 meters by half a meter wide, not exactly, but I sort of designed it around the size of the insulation that will go in. Update on the boxes: I've glued them all together, screwed them all together, put some cork, because apparently the better that these things are sealed and airtight, the better they will work, according to the BBC research paper, so we'll find that out. So yeah, next stop is insulation, and then the final panel, and we'll see how well they work. This is what it's looking like. Behind me, in the corners, some membrane bass traps, more foam, first reflection points, some stuff in the corners over there, cloud of foam above, and then that's what's looking, and then you can see the measurement mic over there, and then you've got the same setup over there. So if I go round and round and round in circles, this is what it looks like in a 360 dizzy perspective. Alright, let me turn this camera around. Room measurement mic. Room measurement software. Highly brilliant. Extra amazing. Yeah, can't say enough about it. I'm probably only scratching the surface. I'm definitely only scratching the surface, but yeah, useful beyond words, as I've just demonstrated. This was the room frequency response in this room before it was as it looks now. Basically, the back was like this with these three things. That was only resting on the floor. That was in place. That was there. That was there. That was resting down there. That was in place. These bookcases were not in place. The rug was not in place, and these big bass traps were not there. So with the introduction of the bookcases and the rug, fixing those to the walls and these stand out 7 centimeters if you really want to know. This is the difference that made. Not a huge amount. Not a huge amount. Maybe 3 decibels, 4 decibels, 2 decibels in some of these peaks. So it is improving it. This next one is going to be with the bass traps. These membrane bass traps, interestingly, don't perform as well as I thought. I thought I was going to be reducing this peak and this pink one here. Hopefully that one as well. I was aiming at this area. What it has done, boom, has drastically reduced this by about 15 decibels, or increased that trough, that null, at 108 hertz, all the way up to here. There's been improvements 2 or 3 decibels, 4 decibels-ish, across the board as well. So if you compare this morning and putting in the bass traps, I think you can slightly ignore this. If I did a repeat, that would probably more align. But I have actually done a repeat. I wasn't looking at this when I did the repeat, but when I did the repeat, this green line was pretty much repeated. Anyway, so there has been a flattening out of the bass frequency response by putting in these bass traps, albeit not in the frequency range that I had thought and designed and used the equation for. That may be due to my building techniques, or my building skill. Probably is due to that, so I will have another look. I'm pretty confident with the internal air sealing, but maybe I can go around the edges of the this forward front-facing panel and maybe around the sides, or I don't know. I'll have a look at it. Add some extra glue, some cork, whatever I can do to do my absolute utmost to try and get that in focus. Yes, firstly, and airtight. That will hopefully improve the performance of the resonating panel. So from this, I ideally would like to have this cut off slightly flatter, this one also, and ideally this one as well. This, I think it might be to do with the desk. I have been in a radio studio where they had carpeted the desk, which is something I could try, I suppose. But yeah, I can move around the desk as well. So the next stage is to put foam, more foam. I know there's a huge amount of foam, anti-foam movement going on, but again, I don't want to have fiberglass. Rambling. Jump cutting to the course of action. So next, going to put some foam here. Well, I'm going to get some foam, hopefully. Need to get some foam for here. Aiming to put some along here, but also in these absolute corners. The thickness of this stuff in the corners at the moment is 100 millimeters or 10 centimeters or 4 inches. So we'll see how we get on with all that. Obviously, turn some attention to these tuned bass traps, or more tuned than these. Anyway, reverb time in the room. You can see that it's improved with every generation of treatment. At one stage it was all the way up here, but it's between this morning and now it's slightly better in this bass frequency range, so that's good. And better from not having the rug and stuff as well with the pink line here. So yeah, aiming for 0.2 seconds, which is 200 milliseconds. That's what's been referenced in a couple of books and online I've seen for a control room. So getting there, I think with that extra foam should be pretty easy to get there with the high frequency range, but obviously the bass is the place with the worst bass. So they say, or as you can see. But yeah, just going back to this is what it looks like now. The frequency response. That's what it looked like without the bass traps. And that's where I was before, the best part of 2 weeks ago. So yeah, getting better. So I've been scratching my head about what's going on with these frequency responses, particularly with these bass traps. And I've turned it down now. I don't know how bad it is on this mic. I don't know whether or not it can pick it up, but I'm currently playing, I've turned it down also for the purpose of this video, but I'm playing 107.5 Hertz, and that's the original dip that I had here in the listening position. So that's where the measurement mic was. And that was removed when I put these bass traps in. And interestingly, this is really physics crazy, but basically these bass traps are seriously resonating, but not as one panel. It's resonating in the top half here in the middle, and then even if I just really gently touch it, if I go to the middle, barely resonating at all, and then back down, resonating again. It's not as bad because I've turned it down, but same thing with the other one because they're the same dimensions. So these boxes are resonating in like a, I don't know how you call it, in physics, maybe some sort of, it's like an extra mode of vibration, or it's a dipole, or I don't know, I'm not too clued up at the moment, but this one's currently on its side because I'm trying to properly seal them up, but apparently it's doing some sort of job. The other thing that I'm doing is I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm going into the corners, which is traditionally what everyone says bass. It's complicated because it relates to the dimensions of the room, but I'm moving around with these test sine wave tones. You can hear super scientific, obviously, but you can hear the null but here, and it gets louder when you get closer to the corner. So at least there's some evidence that frequency is building up in the corners. Excuse me. Now at 66 Hertz, now you may laugh at the amount of science that is going into this, or the lack of science into this, depending on who you are, but it's all incredibly interesting because basically I want to sit here and listen to music, and for it to be the best representation of what is actually there, and will therefore translate across different systems. Basically, I want to hear it well, so hopefully you'll like it as well. If I go through this frequency range, again, I don't know how well this mic will pick this up. Probably not, I don't know. But if I go down at 65 is pretty much where I've got another maximum. And this is also pretty much what this was designed to resonate at. And it definitely is vibrating in the middle more than the... But if I bring it further down to this one here, this one, which is at 50 Hertz or 49.5, let's go for that, 49.5. That's where I can hear in the room. It's extra. Yeah, it's vibrating slightly less. And if I cranked it up, cranked up the level, right, so that's really going for it now. I don't know if you can hear it, but this thing is definitely vibrating in relation to that, so therefore it's absorbing some of the energy. But if I bring it up, that frequency up to the 66 or 65, I can hear that peak. Whoa, 65. Oh. Yeah, this thing is definitely resonating. So it does confirm that it's definitely resonating in the middle. Just going to turn this off. Turn off. Right, so that's off. Right, gather my thoughts. So it does confirm that this is working. These bass traps are working, but they're not working as well. So if I overlay here, it confirms that it is working, and these peaks are getting reduced. You could feel the vibration in the boxes. But it really is quite strong in this range, and the interesting thing is that it's not the whole panel that's moving, it's half of it. So yeah, some top quality physics and slightly dodgy explanations. Right, added to that, it's seriously loud in here, but I don't think this mic's picking it up that well. But here at about 80 hertz, what am I at? Yeah, 80 hertz. There was quite a big reduction, quite a nice flattening out, and also here. And this thing is properly going for it, really resonating. So this box obviously works really well at 80 hertz, which is a lot more. Down here, this isn't resonating as much because it's not in the corners. But if I go over here, bloody loud in the corners. So if that was in the corner, then that's what you get. That green line is an improvement in flat frequency response. So I've got to figure out how to get this one, and this one flatter as the first ports of call. So that's what I'm going to try and do. Further head scratching and discovery of schoolboy errors and basically laziness. So to explain this, the green being what happened after the bass traps, and the pink being without the bass traps, these panel bass traps. What I did was use I have no issue with wicks, but basically they gave for a sheet of 5.5mm plywood, they give a quoted mass for that of 11.25 kilograms. And what I have just done is I've just measured, and I used that to calculate all of this. It turns out this is no bad thing, but this is slightly luck and judgment and all the rest of it. Anyway, so I've actually measured my bit of 5.5 millimeter thick plywood, and it was less than this. So that gave me a 3.78 kilogram per meter squared. I measured mine and I got less. I got 2.6. Now that's probably rough because I just used some like bathroom scales. I found out how much I weigh as well, but I won't. I'll leave that a mystery. And basically that gave me a frequency of 79.24 hertz. not the 66 that I was originally planning on. And lo and behold, 80, 79, 80, that is where it has reduced the most. And that was also where, when I manually inspected, i.e. put my hand on it, that's where it was resonating the most. So finally, these equations actually dovetail with reality a bit more. So that's good. So now I know actually, well, basically it wasn't the equation's fault, it was my fault, because I tried to find a source for my weight of the bit of wood, and I should have just measured it myself. That explains that reduction. And if you can imagine, if this is reduced by, what's this, about 4-5 decibels, so that if that was brought down, and then that could be brought down, and then all of this is affected, so it smooths the whole thing out. So basically now I will do these equations again and make some more boxes. Saturday, May the 4th be with you. This is the current room response, not exactly flat. As previously mentioned, this has been tamed by these traps over here. And I've now added more stuff, more traps in the back. These are tuned, or should work best at 65 Hertz, and they definitely have improved the situation. I won't show you a comparison now, but it's brought it down about 5 dB, or maybe less than that, but it's an improvement. Apologies about the focus. What I have just done, I've just done a load of measurements, putting my measurement mic all around this room, and I've made a little diagram of where the mic was in all these positions. Because basically I would like to get a flatter response in the bass end, and in order to figure out where best to put these traps, it's a good idea to know what the frequency response is like in a particular part of the room. So further analysis to occur, but let me just take you a little tour around the room. So yesterday I put some more of these high frequency, sorry about the focus, here we go, high frequency absorption, yeah, and yeah, lots of foam. Put this on the door, 360 spin. So yeah, it looks pretty cool, but it's more about how this looks. So we're working on this. Jumping to the next stage of the video, I have done a few things that I haven't recorded the progress of. Let me show you those. So the first thing, obviously focusing on tackling the low end resonances, was putting in these resonating membrane bass traps, lots of cutting and sawing, and fixing the front resonating panel with those plasterboard screws. So we've got a big 65 one here, 65 Hertz one here, 130, and as in the previous one of the previous videos, 130 in these top front corners seem to be where it seemed to be worst. So it made sense to me to put them up there. Get a bit of focus. Same thing on here, except this 130 Hertz trap doesn't look and is not square, as previously mentioned, is better. But I think it's, well, I ran out of 25mm ply, in all honesty. So for the moment, that's my solution for that side. Not completely symmetrical, but on the hand and the resonating panel test, they feel like they're resonating a similar sort of amplitude, and it sounds pretty good in here. But let me show you some frequency responses. Here is the difference between the frequency response between the 2nd of May, sorry, the 4th of May and the 10th of June. The 4th of May was when the previous video was shot. You can see there's a big difference in low end frequency amplitude response in the listening position between those two dates, because in between those two times more stuff and treatment has been put in place. And if I get rid of this one, you can see that the whole frequency plot is pretty well contained within a 10 dB plus minus 5 within this band between this line and this line, except for that still just about that troublesome peak at 65 Hz, but obviously thanks to this rear and the other one on the other side of the room, and that one 65 Hz resonant panel absorber, that was decreased. There is something else going on in the room, but that will be one of the other points that I will mention in a second. Low battery idea. And if I get rid of this one again, 130 Hz is the worst thing going on in the room. 133 Hz, yeah. Also, there's a dip here. I think that's thanks to the desk. But for a small room, to have almost a plus minus 5 dB frequency response with physical trapping and no EQ or any other things like that, I think that's a pretty good start. And I have actually started playing around with all the various gear and some demos for the work that I'm going to be focusing on in this room. So let me show you what else I have done. So there was some more foam delivered, surprise, surprise. Quite a lot of it is sat in these rear corners, and it does actually make quite a big difference, maybe 2 or 3 dB in the low end, whacking that stuff in the back there. At least that's what I noticed. Looking at the graphs, you'll have to take my word for it. 300mm by 300mm is what the dimensions of the tiles are. So that's sticking out in the corner there and doing some sort of job. Eventually it might get moved if I make some more panel absorbers. But anyway. Also, next thing is the ceiling. I have put some more of these tiles as a similar sort of cloud situation with a airspace between the actual ceiling surface and the panel of foam. Basically it's these same tiles, same sort of setup with these little bits of wood and screws keeping them up. I think over time probably they'll sag slightly, so eventually I might get some fabric to wrap them, but unfortunately the way that they're all secured is using these carabiners here, so I can take them off fairly easily. But yeah, it does a good job, and the room response has improved thanks to that. These wedge tiles, again, you want to have the thicker the absorption, the better it will perform over a wider frequency range with that air gap. And when these tiles are put together, they are 70mm thick. Next thing, I thought about trying to make something that looked different. Close up it doesn't look that good, but further away it looks better. So just a thin batten frame screwed together, and I went to a DIY shop and got some mosquito netting. This is a PVC one, I believe. And the benefit of that is that it doesn't take ages screwing through foam and cutting these things and making a larger frame that's heavier, whereas this is quite a light frame, and you can just whack the foam on top and it's not fixed in any way. And just because of all these perforations, it's pretty acoustically transparent, and that all helps. Because when I did not have these ceiling things in place, I was doing the statutory room clap test, and there was quite a lot of, because these surfaces are parallel, I was getting a lot of flutter echo still. So after I put that one in, I was clapping over here, and it was clear that I needed to put something up here, which brings us and obviously over there as well, which brings us nicely onto the next thing. And people's jaws may be dropping to the ground, but yes, this is some carpet tiles, and this actually does eliminate, or has eliminated, more of that flutter echo between the surface of the floor and the surface of the ceiling, just by having this thin absorption in the form of carpet. So I've got 3 tiles at the back here, and I've got a couple of tiles. I took the time to go around the room, clapped my hands and flutter wherever I felt there was unacceptable levels of that metallic sounding flutter echo. I whacked some carpet tiles up, and that, again, via some screws you probably can't see, but that wasn't as easy as it looks. Anyway, next thing, there's been a suggestion in some various books that I've been dipping into that having a limp mass, having a limp mass in the room would help attenuate low frequencies. And if you have a standing wave in the room, that depends on the air moving in the room, having some sort of way of absorbing some of that energy in the form of this limp mass would help. This is obviously quite small though. It's a small bit of stuff, and ideally if you had the entire back room, as mentioned I think in one of the Mike Senior books, if you have the entire back wall covered in this limp mass stuff, you're probably going to get a better result. Every little helps, hopefully. What else have I got? Let's go to the next thing. This is the next thing. This is my DIY Supreme portable. Not so portable because it requires a concrete block to keep it upright. But my vocal booth, and actually it does a good job. I've already been in here doing some vocal recording, just scoping everything out, critically listening to how it all sounds, and it actually works pretty well. So above the performer singer, you've got some absorption there, and then when you're in the vocal booth, you've got some attenuation thanks to these foam panels here. It's quite a large 605 by 605 millimeters, I think, so it's quite large. There is a very interesting article on Sound on Sound on the Sound on Sound website that goes through and compares some of these portable vocal booth designs from different manufacturers. There's an interesting thing about if you have a reflective, hard, solid back to them, then that prevents reflections coming back of a low frequency nature and then being picked up by a cardioid microphone. So I recommend checking that out. That's what they have been calling coloration of your vocal tones, but I haven't noticed much of that. I think I haven't been as scientific as the Sound on Sound article in any way, but I think thanks to all of this absorption behind and this absorption here, and there's absorption behind this as well, thanks to the ceiling and thanks to this big duvet, again a Sound on Sound offshoot book, the Paul White book, recommended having a duvet on a T-bar lighting stand, and having these clips just securing everything to the stand to prevent other reflections coming from behind and then into the front of the microphone, that well-known jazz bassist. Next, the question here is, why are these speaker stands at the back of the room and why do they not have speakers on them? Well, unfortunately, because there's only a single bolt going from the foot plate into the column, there's very little support. And when the speaker was on there and the music was playing, speakers being driven, there's a lot of vibration, movement, shaking it all about, doing the hokey cokey, dervishing, whirling, all of those things, and it was not ideal. And I just felt that there wasn't something right. Sat there, just felt something was sort of blurring. And I'm not trying to diss these things because they were incredibly useful for moving around the initial listening position, experimenting with heights and making sure everything was, because these are adjustable, and yeah, they're cheap, they're good for doing that job, but I wouldn't recommend them as highly as the thing that I have replaced them with, which I will show you now. My solution to the moving speaker stand problem was some admittedly agricultural looking concrete blocks. It's made a huge difference to my ear having the speaker sat on a very solid and heavy structure. Made a big difference to my ear, so I recommend anyone put your speakers on something solid, even if it looks a bit rustic. Obviously I could cover this in something, or I don't know, paint them, or anyway, the sound is a lot better than those speaker stands to my ear. Again, I don't want to be all dissing of these particular ones. They are cheap and they did a very good job to start off with, but a bit of a rookie error. Obviously, these speakers aren't ridiculously expensive, far from it, but having them on something solid like this makes a big difference. So try that out if you've got a few issues on the speaker stand front. Recommended doing something like this. The next thing is my brother kindly gave me his old monitor screen. He's got a new one for his work, so he donated his old one to me, and out of this 18mm ply I made a shelf, some brackets on the back there, so it's all suitable for having my laptop there and looking up for something here. And even in just my short experiments with doing some demos and stuff, having the extra screen is very useful, particularly using this Focusrite stuff. Focusrite software that basically controls everything. If I have that on that separate screen, albeit maybe behind another window, but if it's there, it's very useful, so I can flick between settings, mute channels, change monitor setups, do stuff like that. One of the other reasons why this green line is down from the orange line in terms of dB peaks, particularly in the low end, is blocking the ports on the rear of these Yamaha HS7 speakers. I purchased a book called Mixing Secrets by Mike Senior, part of the Sound on Sound offshoot book series, and he recommends in one of his chapters, one of the early chapters, to block ports in more affordable speakers for various reasons. If you look at the waterfall plot in the time domain, there's quite a lot of blurring and extra resonances and reverberation, thanks or not thanks to having a hole in a speaker box. So I recommend checking out that book if you want to look into why and why maybe not, but probably why you might want to put in something to block the ports of your speakers if you have ports in your speakers. I've just used some more of the acoustic foam because you've probably noticed I've got quite a lot of it lying around. One of the offcuts here, same thing on the other one. Just wedged it in fairly firmly. Also, I know that this doesn't catch fire. It melts slightly, but it doesn't catch fire after trying very hard. So that's a good thing. Obviously, these were designed to have air passing in and out, which would probably cool the insides of this box, the speaker, in conjunction with these heat sinks on the back here, which you can't really see very well, but they are there. So yeah, I recommend the Mike Senior book if you want to check out more about that. The other thing to mention and to possibly use is something here on the back of these called room control. -2, -4 dB low cut shelf, or you can fiddle around with the high end as well, but we're talking about low end. You get a similar effect to the orange, the green as shown here. This isn't it, but similar to that. But that being due to the blocking of the ports, I'd definitely say your first port of call would be to block those ports, and then maybe try the room control. But however you do it, listen, measure, do all that stuff, and be all good in your listening position. The other thing that you can see here is I have an Aventone mix cube, and you can tell that I've been reading Mike Senior's book because he recommends those as well. There's no port on the back of that, and if you look at the plots in his book or online on the waterfall time domain type situation, there's no extended dodgy reverberant splurging in the low end, and I've tested them and that's been confirmed, so that's good. So I've got something to mix in mono and experiment with that. All good things must come to an end, and that also applies to room EQ testing. So this is where we are. What I've just done now is I've just angled this. Focus. So this top block was sticking out this way, more parallel to the line of the speaker, but moving that in has moved it out of the way of the sound coming out of the speaker, and that has definitely improved this high-end comb filtering situation. So this is what it is now in the purple, and then in the green is what it was before I moved that speaker. Sorry, not the speaker, the block. The block was moved, and that's quite a big difference really, just by moving that block out of the way. And it really wasn't that much, it was maybe 10 centimeters in terms of the biggest distance, and now it's more like 3 centimeters maybe, and it's, yeah, much better. You can just see that again, much better. And if I go to the graph here in the Room EQ Wizard software, 1/48 smoothing, go back to overlays, a bit more focus, that's pretty decent, that's pretty flat, most of it apart from here with the 130 Hertz problem, this problem with the table, and a bit of a roll off at in the high end, which apparently is no bad thing according to Bobcat's mastering book, so I'll go with that. It's pretty damn decent, pretty damn flat. There's no room like special EQ software fiddling around with anything. This is just what I've got thanks to the treatment that I've put in here physically, and all these boxes and stuff on the ceiling and the box behind me. This issue at the because of the table was just improved by putting in this perforated panel with some offcuts of foam that I had lying around. I was wondering what to do with, and I've just whacked it underneath the table, and that's brought that up a couple of dBs. So all in all, I'm pretty happy, and it's sounding really decent in here. So it's really time to get on with recording. Let's just have a look at the reverb time. So about 400 hertz, we're at about 0.125 seconds reverb time. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. For a small room like that, that's pretty decent. Obviously it goes up here with all the associated issues with the porting of the speakers. Yeah, I'm pretty happy, and without going out and buying some more speakers, I think it's time to crack on making some music. So watch this space. Time to put a sock in it. So I'm gonna get my measurement mic, do a test with the foam in, and then I'm going to replace the foam in each speaker and block the port with a sock. So wish me luck. With these speakers, the low end reproduction is not great. It's pretty good, but it's not like amazing. So between each test of the same level, this low end, super low end response varies a bit. So I say that first, but there does seem to be, so this is with the foam blocking the ports. The super low end does seem to last a bit longer in this time domain, which is what I was talking about earlier, compared to the sock filling the port, which I will go to now. So there does seem to be a bit of a reduction. It's not major, and it might be slightly psychosomatic, or whatever the word is, but it does seem to be a bit better listening to some tunes through the system with the sock as opposed to the foam. So I'll keep experimenting with different stuff to fill the ports before any other drastic things happen. But it's sounding good, so pleased, very pleased. To further illustrate the point with the porting, I'm going to do a test with the speakers filled with the socks versus the Avantone, which is an unported speaker. What I've just done is I've done some fired some pink noise into the room, which sounds a bit like, if you don't know what pink noise is, you can look it up. But I've had my measurement mic here, and I've had this SPL meter, and I've just pretty closely level matched the level coming out of the speakers across the pink noise frequency range, and I will do 2 tests now and show you the resulting waterfall plots. The first thing to notice here is that the SPL frequency response of the mix cube in here, brown, versus the Yamaha HS7s, is that there's generally a lot less bass going on in the mix cubes. But let's do the comparison of the waterfall plots. So you can see here, this one for the mix cube, there is this. There is this compared to on the set of speakers. A lot more. You can see there's a lot more time taken for these things for the sound to decay over the low frequency range. So that's the whole ported versus non-ported argument. You can see across the range on the mix cube there's more time taken over the low frequency range here, but it's compared to the set of speakers, you know, there's a big difference between the high end, the mid and high end. Time splurge, just look at that. So the conclusion after that mildly scientific comparison test was, if you've got ports in your speakers, you probably want to block them up, and if you haven't, then congrats. good for you. It does, despite all that, it does sound really good in here, particularly having blocked up those ports, and I'm about ready to give the science bit a rest and get on with the long awaited proper music making bit. So really looking forward to that. So logging out, checking out. Thank you very much for watching.